my uncles, who actually died in France, serving in France. And some who had been conscripted from America that came over. So then for the British to impose conscription really put the cat among the pigeons. It really was the thing that pushed them over the edge. That they had certainly been deeply traumatized by the 1916 rebellion, and by the executions of the leaders afterwards. But when they tried to impose conscription, an extraordinary thing happened. The Protestants in the north, because remember Ireland was at that time, it was not divided, and it was still part of Britain, an integral part of Britain. That was the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. That's where the United Kingdom comes from, the UK. And it started in 1800 when they united the two kingdoms. The British kingdom. You asked earlier, were the two? Yeah, they were separate countries, separate
English
kingdoms.
And Scottish kingdoms, right?
No, that had happened in the 1700s, very 1700s, where they had united the Scottish kingdom with the English and Welsh kingdom. So now, in 1800, you had the United Kingdom of what is currently the island of Britain and the island of Ireland and all of those islands. Now, so during the First World War, Ireland was as much part of the United Kingdom as Yorkshire was or Cornwall was. It was absolutely the same. But there was there was a very clear understanding that it was still different. It was, and that's what's extraordinary about it. It never really was British. But what happened was, when they imposed conscription, which they had already imposed on the rest of Britain, not only did the Southern Irish Catholics rebel and say to hell with this, but the Northern Protestants did as well. Which really complicated things, and it's a very interesting thing, and really puts the Northern Ireland Unionists, I'll call them Unionists and Loyalists rather than Protestants, it puts them in a terrible situation when you try to have a discussion with them. They're absolutely speechless, and it's true, and they know that there's no answer to that one. Now, suddenly they became Irish when they shared. Yeah, when they shared this.
Conscription was in World War One or two.
One.
In one.
Yeah.
Like halfway through or something, or.
Well, it was from the very beginning in the island of Britain. They never did succeed in imposing in the south or in Ireland.
Oh.
But you see, what was so silly about it by the English was that the north and the south were competing with each other to be loyal to the because the Protestant loyalists in the north gave incredibly to the war effort. They were really, really decimated. And if you go to the graveyards in France, it's the saddest thing. It really is. And there's some great plays and movies written about it. Ulstermen marching in the Somme and so on. So it really is an insult that when you have given everything you have, and now they're going to force you to give it or give more, you actually pull back. So that shows how little the British government at the time understood, which included Winston Churchill at the time. That was the national government that had been formed by all parties. They had suspended all politics and they had a national government. Anyway, that was very very important to what happened there. It's not terribly dealt with in Irish history. Well, anyway, the First World War ended largely because the Yanks are here. The Yanks came and put a quick end to it, and it always really hinged upon that. If the Americans came in, there was no question about that it would. The Germans couldn't fight the Americans, so that pretty well decided in very short order. Now, then things happened very quickly after that.
Can we just go back to conscription? So how did they reject conscription? Because like in this country, when in the Vietnam War, when people wouldn't sign up or whatever, they were put in jail or.
Well, first of all, it had to be an act passed to actually conscript in Ireland. They didn't have the authority. The laws were very complicated. The way they had sort of imbibed there was a lot of old laws that still were on the books, so that Well, the legislative body for the entire United Kingdom was the British House of Commons. Everything that happened before, and a tremendous amount of common law and so on, still survived. So it was a complicated thing, so that it required separate legislation to do it. It would require, and that really was where the battle was. It's not that they just said, the general sent over a recruiter and said, you, and you, you're volunteers. So that then the actual, the legislation became the point of, argument. What would have happened if the Americans hadn't come in? And who knows? They would undoubtedly have, the British would have imposed it, probably. And they would have, who knows? I mean, one can only conjecture, but it may have united the North and the South together against the English. Who knows? But it didn't happen that way. And then when the armistice took place and the Treaty of Versailles and all that stuff, there was a tremendous amount of politics going on. You had the League of Nations and you had Wilson over there, and there was so much going on. We don't want to go into all of that, but there was a tremendous amount of jockeying for position. And Ireland felt sure that they would now be rewarded, and that as part of the new dispensation, if you like. After all, we'd just fought a world war for the right of small nations like Belgium, and America had come in on the side of the war, sold it to the American people on that regard, that we were in the right to self-determination, all of that stuff was in the air. So there was every reason to believe that we could breathe easily, and that we could now get a home rule bill, something passed. Well, it didn't work.
You were on the wrong side.
Huh?
You were on the wrong side.
Well, now you're right back now into the room and the big discussion again. You see, now you've got a bunch of guys on one side that says, "I told you so. They would never intended to do it. And if you ever trust them for one second, you're a fool."
If England had lost, the Germans would have been happy to divide up.
Well, we don't
Britain
know.
into lots of pieces.
We absolutely don't want to do it. We certainly don't want to. We don't want to start. Might happen. But what did happen was, obviously, there was tremendous feeling on both sides of the argument that both sides were vindicated, if you like. That if they felt that you can never trust an Englishman, he will tell you everything under the sun, moon, and the stars, and then when it's time to deliver, he's gone. He's missing. And there's no question that, to a large extent, that's what happened, because they had a glorious opportunity to make peace with the Irish at that time. But they sent over a bunch of ruffians called the Black and Tans. And their reaction was traditional. They thought, okay, well now we've got this and this, and we're carving up the Middle East, and we're drawing lines in the sands, and we've got Iraq here, and we've got, they were doing all of this. They were carving up the world because America had won the war for them, so to speak. But they were not. And by the way, these Irish guys over there, you send someone over there and pacify those. Just shoot them, kill them, whatever you have to do. Just, who cares about what you promised them? That was then. Now is now. We're tidying up after the war here. So they sent over. Literally an army of ruffians, because like the Essex Regiment, if you like. And now you're getting into the period when you had Tom Barry and the Flying Column fighting the Essex Regiment in the south. But it's clear for anybody who wants to look at it that the English had no intention whatsoever of giving any independence to the Irish. So now we're into this period when this argument among that generation took place. And as I said, we've done Tom Barry here tonight, so we have lots of those of you who come fairly regularly are familiar with Tom Barry, and most of them unfortunately died in that struggle. But they were that generation's expression of that you have to fight for it. You have to go out. And what they did was truly extraordinary, because the Irish people did not support them. They call them all kinds of terrible names, but enough did support them, and they were sort of the thin green line, as it's often referred to in Irish history, where that nationalism just continued on down. So I find it fascinating that in each generation, as Pádraig Pearse said, Ireland always found those kind of people, those kind of men and women.
It's especially women.
And women.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a great fan of the women now. You never call me.
Wonderful Irish women from that period. Maud Gunn McBride,
Yeah.
Countess Margaret, they're just fabulous. But it's worth noting that the training of the flying columns was training that they received, many of them, from serving in the British Army during World War I.